Hi, my name is Ren. This is Mac. He's joining me today. Um, as someone who has bipolar disorder, I know that it's important to have a bipolar buddy who can be there and kind of talk to you about what's going on, and just so you feel like you're not in it alone, because you're not. And so, if you need a bipolar buddy, I got your back. I'm starting out this kind of randomly. As you can see, I don't have a lot of setting going on. I'm just kind of winging it at the moment. I've been talking with my therapist recently about how I can use my energies in a time during which I'm unemployed because I'm trying to learn to manage my illness at this point enough that I can go back into the workplace. And she said, "Why don't you do a blog? What about YouTube?" And I've been sitting on it and sitting on it for weeks. And tonight I was like, you know what? I'm feeling slightly hypomanic. Why not just go for it? So, what I'm intending to do as your bipolar buddy, you can call me your bipolar bestie if you like to, is kind of just give you a little story time sometimes. Tell you a little bit about my experiences, what I've learned through my treatment over, it's been almost a decade now that I've been receiving treatment for bipolar disorder. And I've experienced quite a few things that I feel are important to talk about. To give a little bit of context, I used to work in higher education. For my PhD, I researched the experiences of college students with mental illness and what they went through, how they perceived themselves, how they felt perceived by others. And I think it's a really important conversation to keep having. What is it like to live this experience of having this diagnosis or any kind of diagnosis? What is it like? What is it like for me? What is it like for you? What is it like for others? We should be discussing these things and bringing them to light so that we know it's not as scary as it might seem sometimes, so that we have someone to talk to, and so that other people who don't understand, who don't live that experience of having a certain diagnosis, in our case, bipolar, or I should say, in my case, bipolar, so that they can understand what it's like to live the way that you, that I, that other people might live, so that they can better support and understand the people in their lives who have these types of experiences. So, I want to talk about a lot of random things with y'all over, I don't know, several weeks, I suppose. Um, like, I'd love to tell you about my diagnosis, re-diagnoses, that kind of journey. Uh, which happened in part after some psychosis um, that has lingered on as paranoia and delusions. How this has affected my friendships and other relationships with family, with dating partners, with spouse. Um, how it has affected my time in academia as I was earning degrees. How it's affected me in the workplace. I've done inpatient a number of times. I'd love to tell you about what I experienced when I did inpatient, because it's something that has a lot of weight to it. It feels scary if you haven't done it before. And so I'd love to tell you about my journey. Of course, the journey to find the right psychiatrist, the right therapist, um, the cycle of medication stability, new medication, seeking stability, medication, medication, medication. Of course, I'd like to tell you a little bit about like what my mood cycling is like. Um, I rapid cycle, for example. So, what is rapid cycling in comparison to general mood cycling, or what might be considered perhaps more normative mood cycling, although I'm hesitant to call it normative. In addition to that, what's my depression like? What are my manic symptoms like? Um, I have a history of self-harm. So how does that relate? How does it make me feel? Why do I do it? What do I want to do it? How do I stop myself from doing it when I want to? Suicidal ideation has happened many times as well. That was the impetus behind my most recent hospitalization back in October of 2020. Um, I'd like to talk a little bit about my self care toolkit, the things that I can pull out to try to help myself through the rough patches and manage the mood cycling when they do happen, when I lose stability. Um, Things that people in my life do that's very helpful, friends, family, whomever, uh, what they do that makes me feel better. So if you are not someone who has bipolar, maybe those would be some things you could think about implementing for the person in your life who does have bipolar. And also some things that people do that just really don't help, even if they're well intentioned. Again, so that's something you can stick in your toolkit. Um, I've also recently embarked upon a journey of starting to accept my new quote unquote normal. So what what can I expect for my life? What is realistic for me to expect as opposed to the vision I had before my diagnosis, before my symptoms became so severe? So I'd like to talk about that journey. Um, Other than that, I guess the only other topics I'd have in mind was choosing not to have children. Why or why not? That's a conversation that I think is important to have. And something else I've seen, sorry, itchy nose. Something else I've seen come up over the past year ish is, people's concerns about living alone or living with a partner or a family member or a roommate. Which is better? Is there one that is better? So basically, I'm a talk a lot, as you can probably tell. I'm a big talker. Um, so today, I just want to tell you a little bit about my story. Um, I was diagnosed in probably about August of 2013. I had just moved to a new state to start working on a PhD. Um, and the months before that, something had been very wrong. It didn't feel right. I wasn't sleeping at night. I couldn't sleep at night. If I slept, it was during the day a little bit. I didn't want to leave my apartment. I couldn't make myself leave my apartment. I struggled to eat. Everything just felt wrong. And I didn't have words to really explain, but things were wrong and I was scared and I didn't know what to do. And what happened is I moved up to a new state, started my PhD program, and in my apartment, there was a balcony that looked out into a little ravine, lots of trees. And one day I stood there and looked at the sliding glass doors, stood next to them, looked through them out into the dark, and I felt something calling to me, telling me that I needed to live amongst the trees. I belonged amongst the trees. I felt that it was where I needed to be. It was where I was supposed to be. The universe was telling me. And I didn't hear this, have this actual, I didn't actually hear something. There was no voice. It was in here. I felt it. I could feel it talking to me, but I did not hear it talking to me. But I felt the trees were saying that I needed to live amongst them. And so I went out on the balcony and I stood and stared at the trees a while longer, just in the dark, thinking, how do I reach the trees? How do I get to the trees? Should I? Do I belong there? It sounds like I belong there. And reaching out over the railing, trying to reach the trees, but they were too far. I could reach some very small branches, very, very tiny little branches. So I started trying to climb over the railing. Couldn't quite do it, but I started trying. Started trying to climb over that railing so that I could leap. My intention was to climb over the railing and jump and hope that I could grab onto a tree. Realizing, though, that I very well could fall onto the rocks below and do serious damage to myself, be severely injured, if not, worse. So I was ready. I was gonna do it, and thankfully, my spouse saw what was happening and had to pull me back inside. I fought. I was shouting that I needed to jump, I needed to be amongst the trees. Crying, sobbing, desperate as he pulled me back into the apartment. I wouldn't be surprised if I had bruises from how hard he had to grab to pull me because of the force that I was exerting to be towards the trees. And that's when everything changed. That was the moment. I went to the student health center, probably not the next day, but as soon as I could get in, I think it was within a week. And the doctor I saw said, "This is serious. You tried to kill yourself." And I was like, no, I really didn't. I was just gonna live in the trees. It's fine. It's fine. And she said, "Well, you should probably do some inpatient treatment. Go to the hospital." I was like, no, I'm fine. It's gonna be fine. It's totally gonna be fine. I talked my way out of being hospitalized when I really probably should have been, looking back in retrospect, because I thought it was scary. I didn't know how long I'd be kept there. I didn't know if I would be let out, when I would be let out, what would happen when I went there. And so I talked my way out of it because I was teaching at the time, and I explained that my students were what was keeping me alive, that they were important to me, that I kept going because I needed to be there for them, to teach them, to do the prep, to do the grading, to do everything, that I needed that. And so then I was referred to a psychiatrist. I don't know how long it was before I saw the psychiatrist. This was some years ago. And she ran through the whole assessment, all kinds of questions that I can't remember, and said that I had bipolar disorder, not otherwise specified. So there it was. I was bipolar, somewhere on that spectrum. Not enough information yet to be able to say, was I type 1, was I type 2, so not otherwise specified. To make it also fun, I had and still have generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress, and at the time I want to say panic disorder with agoraphobia was also on that list. So that was it. That was my moment. I was, goodness, let me try to think. 28 years old, I think, if I'm doing my math correctly. I was 28 years old. Just started a PhD program in a whole new state where I didn't have anybody. And I was bipolar. And I knew that nothing was ever going to be the same. I knew that I was going to be on medications for the rest of my life. I knew that the person I thought I was wasn't me anymore because I had this new identity, a person with bipolar. And I have spent the past nearly 10 years struggling to make meaning of that. But, I'm still here, so there's that. That's something to hold on to. It's been a rough journey, but I'm still here. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of my journey. I think that's all I'm going to share with you tonight, but thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing me to maybe be your bipolar buddy or bipolar bestie. And if you want to, comment, share your story. When did you know? When did you know you were bipolar and that your life had changed forever? And what would you like to know? What would you like to hear from someone who's been dealing with this for almost a decade? What information will be useful to you? Whether it's a story time thing or me talking about conversations I've had with providers over the years or whatever. I want to share. I want to be your bipolar buddy. Peace out.